So welcome back to today's Creative Reset workshop. We are back for some flow journaling with prompts around creativity and also some doodling or drawing, so observational drawing. You don't need to be able to draw. This isn't about, getting everything right. It's just about being a little bit free, a little bit looser. And if you have something else that you would like to do during this time, so if you've brought your own thing, you want to do your own journaling, you want to reflect on the practice, you want to do some knitting, sewing, this can be your time to do whatever you need to do. We are also halfway through the year if you are watching this in July. So you might choose to reflect on your personal goals or intentions that you set at the start of the year. And you might acknowledge so it might be about acknowledging what you need to support you through the second half of the year. And especially when it comes to allocating time for yourself or for your creativity or to move your body for joy, for pleasure, rather than just because, we're told we have to. How can we move for that connection? What is flow journaling? If you are not sure, then we set a timer, 5, 10, 15 minutes. I've got 3 different times just to get us going. And I will give you a prompt and you write whatever comes to mind without stopping, without pausing. There might be a little pause, don't worry if you do, but it doesn't have to be coherent. It doesn't have to be perfect, and try not to censor yourself either. Let things come up without concern, without judgment. And then with the doodling, so I'm going to be giving a journal prompt and I'm going to give a doodling prompt or a drawing prompt. So making sure that you have got your objects with you. It might be one, it might be a few. I said like 3 to 5. You could choose whatever you want. And I'll give the journal prompt first and you can write it down. And then I'll give the doodle prompt and you might want to do that later. But you are going to get the recording anyway. So if you just want to focus on one thing today, that's fine. You can always come back to the video later. Okay, making sure that you have got your pens, pencils. I've got a pot of coloured pens here. You might be doing this in a journal. You might be using a sketchbook. So I've started doing 90 days of creativity. I'm trying to do something every day. So I'm just using a sketchbook at the moment for observational drawing. And you might have that with you. Let's get started then. So making sure that you are comfortable. You've got your tea, you've got your water, you might be sitting at a desk, you might be relaxing on the sofa. Our first prompt is going to be 5 minutes. So not very long, although it can feel long when you're trying to think of things to write. I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes and the journal prompt is, let me copy it into the chat box so that you can see it, is, did your creative part have anything to share with you today? Did your creative part have anything to share with you today? Write down what came up for you in your movement or yoga nidra practice. And we have 5 minutes. There is another part to that, is what makes them feel joyful, playful and creative. I'm going to pop that one in the chat box. So if you do want to add that on. Did your creative part have anything to share with you today? And if it didn't, so this one can be a tricky one, because if nothing came up, you might be sitting there going, well, nothing came up. So write about that, write about your experience of the yoga nidra practice and the movement practice and how that felt for you. Focus on that side of it. And maybe any resistance that came up, any struggles that came up with the creative part. Now the drawing prompt, if you would like that, is to doodle or express how your creative part showed up today. So that might have been your inner creativity, your self-expression, your inner child. Maybe there was an image, maybe there was a shape, a color, an outline. You can do that next to your journal prompt if you're focusing on that. You can doodle around the words, or you can just focus on the drawing part. So doodle or express how your creative part showed up today. No right or wrong. Try to keep going, even if there are no words. Write that down. There are no words, there are no words. If you could doodle that feeling of there being no words, what would that be? It might be some shapes, it might be some circles with big space in the middle. And we can bring a somatic approach to this by checking in with how it's feeling in our body, those sensations that are coming up as we write. Maybe there's some tension somewhere. Maybe there's this feeling of stuckness or numbness, or maybe there's a feeling of flow and expression and openness. And again, trying not to judge yourself. We have 1 minute left. Last 10 seconds. And stop. The last few words, getting them out if you're in a flow of a sentence. Take a moment to sit back. And in between these prompts, you might feel like you need to bring a little bit of movement in. That's always encouraged. You might check in with that you are actually breathing. Our next prompt will be 10 minutes. Our journal prompt is what currently inspires you and makes you feel connected to the creative parts within you. So what currently inspires you and makes you feel connected to the creative parts within you? The drawing prompt is to choose one of your objects. I can't speak now. Choose one of your objects that makes you feel joy or contentment or happiness, and to draw your object whilst looking at it and without looking at the paper. So you hold your object up in front, you grab your pen, your pencil, you find a spot on your paper, and then you keep going, keep drawing, trying to get all the little details in without looking at the paper. And yes, it will look wild. So the point is to try. If you do find yourself looking down, start again. Start again. You don't have to go for 10 minutes with this one. It might be right, well, I've drawn it now, so try again. Use the 10 minutes to explore drawing by looking at your object. And you can pick the pen off the paper and put it back down, and just being aware that you might end up somewhere over here when you started down here. And that's all part of the fun. And if you're not sure what that means, I'm just going to show you my bananas. Those are my bananas without looking at my paper. And I used 3 different colours in there, so that was fun. So the journal prompt was what currently inspires you and makes you feel connected to the creative parts within you. And the drawing prompt was choosing your object from around your house that inspires you or that makes you feel joy. And you draw it whilst looking at the object and without looking down at the paper. And this is an observational drawing practice. It really helps us connect with our object rather than trying to think about how it looks on the paper. You explore the shapes and the how it all fits together and all the little nuances of it. And if you do your drawing and you look down at it in between and you think, what is going on here? Try and enjoy that. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what it looks like. It's not about perfection. You might even acknowledge how many times you do look down if you're doing the drawing prompt and catch yourself. Notice how many times you're doing it. And again, bringing in curiosity. How does it feel to be writing, to be reflecting without censoring, to be drawing without looking at the paper? And this is all about your inspiration. So why does it inspire you? What is it about it that made you choose it? How does that feel in your body? I'm joining in with the doodling prompt and I just look down at the paper because it's really hard not to. Especially when you've got something complicated like this flower in the middle. So I do it too. I look down too. Just that little like side eye. Like, what's happening down there? We have 4 minutes left. If you do naturally come to a point where you stop, so if you're not going for the whole 10 minutes, that's fine. Sit back, bring some movement in. You might even choose to get up and have a little walk around. If you are doing the journal prompt and you feel like you've got nothing left to say, it can be helpful to try and keep writing because other things might come up. So it's kind of finding that balance of like, oh, I'm sitting back because I think I've finished, or is there something else that can be explored here? And asking yourself that. We've got 2 minutes left. Going into the final minute. Last 30 seconds. Coming to the end. If you haven't looked at your drawing yet, have a little peek. You want to see mine? I feel about 5 years old. It makes me happy. Bring it over a little bit more, Anne. Ah. Ah, so move if you need to, stand up if you need to. Maybe acknowledge how that prompt felt. Some of these are going to maybe feel easy. Some might feel not so easy, but it's good to have this time to do this. And just remember, there is no right or wrong way to do it. And you don't need to berate yourself for not knowing. Okay, next prompt. So we're going to go for 10 minutes again. The journal prompt is think back to a moment of happiness, joy, or creativity that you experienced recently. Relive the sensations, thoughts, and maybe emotions associated with it. How does it show up in your body when you reflect on this time? Pop it in the chat box. So thinking back to a moment of happiness, joy, or creativity that you experienced recently, relive the sensations, thoughts, and maybe the emotions associated with it. How does it show up in your body when you reflect on this time? The drawing prompt is to choose another object that brings you joy or happiness and to study it. Take a couple of moments to feel it, to hold it, to move it through your fingers, to like feel the texture and the shapes. What sensations are present in your body when you do this? And also, can you pick out the individual shapes? So your doodling prompt is to pick out the individual shapes rather than see it as a whole. It's like, okay, so this is a triangle. This is or an oblong. It might be like an oval. What shapes do these make? These are circles. And to draw out, you can look at the paper this time, to draw out all the basic shapes that you see within it. Might be circles. There might be circles within circles. So kind of picking it apart, dismantling it through drawing. Break it down into its very basic shapes, draw them out, and you can use different colors to represent different parts of it. And then you can use those different colors to draw it and put it back together. And it's a doodle. We're doodling it back together. We're doodling, dismantling it. And it's only based on the basic shapes. Remember, this is all about observation, seeing, and only putting down what you see. The drawing prompt has that more somatic practice to it of actually holding it and feeling it and noticing what those sensations are in your hands. So this has got little spiky bits, so I can feel the spike on my fingertips, and there's like a little fluffy bit. So it's noticing what those sensations feel like in your hands. Or it could be to do with the actual thing, the object that it is. Does it bring back a memory? Does it make you feel happy? You chose it for that reason. And where is that sensation in your body? Remembering to bring in that compassion as if you are sitting with a friend. If you're struggling to feel those sensations, or if you are, if you tend to be more up in your head, those practices that we did earlier, those somatic practices, you can come back to doing those. You don't have to be sat here trying to draw or trying to write things down if it's really causing resistance and discomfort and that self-doubt. If your inner critic is showing up, take a moment to step away, to move again, to come back into connection with your body, into connection with the floor, the safety, the stability. We've got 5 minutes to go. And this is also a reminder to check in with your breath. Maybe become a little bit heavier through your seat. Or if you can feel your feet on the floor, you can come back to a little bit of marching like we did in the movement practice. got 2 minutes left. Into that final minute. If your body is telling you to move at any point, then honor that, take that signal. Sometimes I can just be sat drawing for hours and then forget, and my head is kind of tilted to one side and I get this crick in my neck and like, oh, actually, I should have got up and had a break. So don't feel like you have to sit there for the whole time if your body is telling you to move. And we are coming to the last few seconds. And stop. Finishing off those last few sentences. If you're still going, notice if you have that tendency of having the head to one side, and if you've been like that for the whole 10 minutes, let's bring some movement into the neck and shoulders maybe. If you need to get up, stretch your legs, shake them out. Okay, so we are coming up to water past. So we've got one more prompt to do. And we're going to do it for 7 minutes. So let me copy and paste. If you came to the January workshop, or if you did the recording, then this is kind of you can reflect from that, but also you can just start with where you're at today. So what is one creative, joyful, or playful thing you would love to commit to for the rest of this year? And how can you realistically show up for it? If you came to the January workshop, there is a different question. Did you manage to commit to something, to that thing? So this was a question from January. Did you manage to commit to something? What helped or hindered you? And what support might you need for the rest of the year? If that is still your goal. If it's changed, you can answer the question again. What is one creative or joyful thing that you would love to commit to for the rest of? List all of the steps that you need to take. So it might be buying materials, allocating time in your week or month, might be having a list of simple ideas. Now, the drawing prompt is to bring all of your objects together if you've got multiple objects, or you can just pick one object and do a continuous line drawing. How can you either connect all of these objects together through one continuous line without picking it off the page? Or how can you draw one object, continuous line, getting all of the things in? Obviously, it might not be this. If it's a box, that's really a box shape. It's quite. So don't worry if you go over the same line again. Don't worry worry if you end up going over the same bit 3 times, that's fine. However, you need to reconnect and connect all of the things together. You allow your pen or pencil to flow freely and you breathe. What is one thing that you would love to commit to for the rest of this year, and how can you realistically show up for it? So that might mean putting some stuff in place, having some, allocating a time, getting the materials, telling people, I'm going to do this. Maybe telling people doesn't make you feel good, so you want to keep it to yourself. That's your personal intention for the rest of the year, and you take yourself off and you find your time to do that. A reminder that the drawing prompt is all about observation, not about getting it right, not about it being in proportion. So don't worry about that, but following all of the different shapes and thinking, how can I connect these without lifting the pen off the paper? So it's that looking back and forth at your object. We're building up those skills. I think a lot of the time when it comes to drawing, we kind of get freaked out by the whole thing and how detailed it might be and how complicated it might be. So when we break it down and we think of it in shapes, and then how does one side, what length is one side of it compared to the other, depending on the angle that it's at. And also these really loose, continuous line drawings, just really fluid doodles can actually look pretty cool. So we have 2 minutes left. Going into the minute and a half left. Last 30 seconds. And coming to the end, and putting everything down. You might, if you've been drawing, you might take a moment to look down at it. If you've been writing, have a little flick over the pages without kind of going into it, just acknowledging that you've written things down, and you can come back to it later if you want to. Then I think you know what I'm going to say. Let's bring some movement in. Feel free to stand up here. These are our last few moments of the session. We're bringing in a little bit of movement back into our body. Maybe you need a little bit more grounding, so you might connect to the surface underneath you. You might come back to those initial practices that we did at the start of marching on the spot or walking around your space. If you are watching this recording, then I invite you to shift your weight from foot to foot and swing your arms, but you are welcome to bring any movement in that you feel like you need after that. Maybe focusing in on any areas that feel a little bit tight or tense. It could be through the low back, could be the shoulders. Little roll of the shoulders, slow turn of the head from side to side. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Reconnecting with your space. You can keep a little bit of movement going here, or you can come to find some stillness. You can be standing, sitting. I invite you to check in. So that might be bringing your hands onto your body. You might want to sit down and feel the support of the chair beneath you. You might want to continue walking around your space. But how are you? Asking yourself, how am I after today's session? So if you've been through the whole journey of the movement, the somatic movement, into the yoga nidra, and then into the journaling and doodling part of the workshop, checking in, how do I feel now? What was that word or words that came up for you when you checked in, and how you felt? Is that word the same? Has it changed? Has it shifted? It's okay if it's still the same. Are there any insights, shifts, thoughts? What was your intention? Have you honored your intention today? Was there something that came up that meant that you couldn't honor that intention, and that might be something that you need to reflect on or journal on? And you might want to come back to these questions or reflect on your answers in a few days' time. You might want to do it again on your own. If you know that there's something that you want to commit to doing for the next, for the rest of the year, or maybe that feels too much, and maybe you do the remainder of these 90 days. We've still got 2.5 months to do something creative, and I'm doing my 90 days of creativity. And here's today my continuous line drawing of my my glasses. So how can you make that happen for yourself? Keep it simple. Sometimes we do overcomplicate it. So thank you so much for joining me live or on the recording. I'm going to stop the recording now and I can check in with the people that are here. So thanks again for being here. Thank you for watching the recording, and have a wonderful day.